Okay, let's just dive right in. I want you to picture a scene, because the backstory here is, well, it's almost too good to be true.
It's the kind of thing you'd write for a movie.
Exactly. So it's December 1945. We're in Upper Egypt, near this massive cliff face, Nag Hammadi. And there's a local farmer just digging around for, nitrate-rich soil to use as fertilizer.
It's just a normal day at work.
A completely normal day.
Yeah.
He's just doing his job, and then his shovel hits something hard.
The classic setup for every great discovery story ever.
Right. It's straight out of a script. He digs it up, and it's not a rock. It is a sealed red earthenware jar, buried for, 1,600 years?
An incredible amount of time.
Now, in the movies, he'd smash it open, and a genie would fly out, or maybe finds gold coins. In reality, he breaks it open and finds books. 13 leather-bound books.
Yeah.
Papyrus codices.
And he has no idea what he's found. In fact, he almost burns them.
He almost burns them. That part always gets me. He actually considers using the pages to, heat his tea that night.
Which, let's be honest, would have been the single most expensive cup of tea in the history of the human race.
No question. A tragedy. Because what was inside that jar wasn't just some old farmer's almanac or tax records.
No. It was a time capsule. A time capsule that, and this isn't an exaggeration, completely rewrote our understanding of early Christianity. It contained the Gospel of Thomas.
And that is what we are deep diving into today. But I have to be completely honest with you at front, and with you, the listener, too. When I first tried to read this thing years ago, I was just frustrated.
That's a very common reaction.
I mean, I grew up with the standard Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. They have a structure. A beginning, a middle, and end. There's a manger. There are miracles. There's a trial, a crucifixion, a resurrection. It's a story. It's a movie.
Exactly. The canonical Gospels are narratives. They're, for all intents and purposes, biographies. Thomas is not that.
Not even close. It's a list. It's literally just a list. 114 secret sayings. There's no context, no story. Jesus just says something weird, and then boom, next saying.
It feels disjointed.
It feels like reading someone's raw Twitter feed from the first century. Just these disconnected thoughts.
Or another way to look at it is raw data. And that's actually the point. The text introduces itself right away as the hidden sayings recorded by Didymos Judas Thomas.
And right there, in the author's name, we get our first clue that this isn't going to be a normal Sunday school lesson.
Not at all.
Didymos Judas Thomas. Let's break that down, because Thomas isn't actually a proper name, is it?
No, it's not. Thomas is Aramaic for the twin, and Didymos is Greek for the twin.
So his name is Judas the twin, the twin.
Essentially, yes. It's heavily emphasizing this idea.
Which, of course, begs the obvious question, whose twin?
Well, in the Gnostic tradition, the clear implication is that he's the spiritual twin of Jesus. But it's bigger than that. It suggests that the reader, you, me, anyone picking this up, is invited to discover their own twinship with the divine.
So it's not about worshiping a distant figure.
No, it's about recognizing a shared nature, an identity.
Okay, that sets the stage. But then you hit the very first line, saying, one. And this is where the text basically grabs you by the collar and says, pay attention.
It's the ultimate hook.
It says, whoever discerns the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death.
Just let that sink in for a second. What a promise.
Oh, wait, hold on. Will not taste death. That sounds, it sounds like a cult promise or something from a vampire movie. Is he promising physical immortality? Like, read this book and you'll live forever?
No. And this is the first and most important shift we have to make. If you read Thomas literally, it's just nonsense. It's gibberish. You have to read it esoterically.
It's a code.
It's an intelligence test. It's a challenge. He isn't asking for your belief. He's asking for your discernment. He's saying, look, I'm going to give you these riddles. If you can crack the code, if you can undergo the cognitive shift required to understand them, you will realize that what you are, your essential self, cannot die.
So it's a manual.
It is a manual for the transformation of human consciousness, and that is the specific lens we're using today. We aren't reading this as history. We're not asking, did Jesus really say this in 30 AD? That's a different conversation.
Right.
We are reading this as a guide to inner alchemy.
Alchemy. Now, I have to stop you there, because when I hear alchemy, my mind immediately goes to Guys in robes trying to turn lead into gold in some medieval basement. It feels a little,
The woo-woo.
yeah, a little Harry Potter.
And that's the popular image, for sure.
Yeah.
But real serious alchemy was always a dual practice. Yes, they were playing with chemicals, but the lead they were really trying to transform was also the heavy, dense, unrefined human ego.
And the gold.
The gold was spiritual wholeness, the integrated self.
So the Gospel of Thomas is the recipe book for that transformation.
Exactly. And when you view it that way, the chaos of the text, that random list of sayings, it suddenly disappears. You start to see a roadmap, a specific ordered sequence of psychological and spiritual evolution.
A roadmap with colors.
Right. The alchemists mapped this inner journey of the soul through 4 distinct color stages. First, the nigredo, the blackening.
The decomposition.
Then the albedo, the whitening, or purification. After that, the citronitas, the yellowing, the dawn of a new consciousness. And finally, the rubedo, the reddening, the integration back into life.
Okay, I love a good framework. It helps me organize the madness. So let's walk through this roadmap. We have to start with the raw material, the lead, what's the term?
The prima materia.
Prima material, the first matter. This is the world as we find it, right? It's just the starting
The
off.
raw stuff of your life. Unfiltered, unrefined.
And there is a saying in Thomas saying 77 that addresses this directly.
Yeah.
And honestly, this saying completely upends what I thought I knew about Gnosticism.
How so?
Well, usually these esoteric texts are all about escaping the world, right? You get that vibe of the body is a prison, the material world is a trap, earth is hell, that kind of thing.
That's the classic Gnostic dualism, yes. The idea that a lesser sort of evil god created the material world to trap sparks of light. But Thomas does something radically, radically different.
Let's get the quote on the table. Jesus says, I am the light that is over all things. I am all, and they get super specific. He says, split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there.
Lift up the stone, and you will find me there. It's such a powerful line.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second. Why a stone? A stone is dumb. It's inert. It's dead. It's heavy. If I want to find God, I'm supposed to look at a sunset or a newborn baby or, majestic mountain range. I don't look at a rock I just tripped over in the driveway.
But that is precisely why the image is so brilliant. Think about the qualities of a stone. It is dense, it is opaque, it is heavy. It represents the most stubborn, difficult, mundane parts of our reality.
It's the unsexy stuff.
It's the unsexy stuff. It's your commute in traffic. It's the stack of bills on your desk. It's the argument with your spouse that you've had 50 times. It is the literal heaviness of life.
So the escapist wants to fly away from the stone to find the light.
Yes. But the alchemist, the mystic in this tradition, is told to lift the stone.
Meaning you have to engage with it.
Meaning you have to apply your attention to the density. The work is not to avoid the difficult parts of your life, but to bring your full consciousness to bear upon them. If you lift the stone, if you bring conscious attention to the heavy, mundane parts of your life, you don't find nothing. You find me.
You find the logos.
The divine is latent within the density. It's not somewhere else. It's hiding in plain sight.
That is a massive, massive paradigm shift. It means the world isn't a trap, it's a hiding place.
Or a puzzle. A puzzle that is waiting to be solved by your focused attention. The prima materia isn't bad. It's just the raw stuff of your life waiting for you to notice the gold that's already inside it.
But, and here's the catch, if the world is a puzzle, solving it isn't necessarily fun. At least not at first.
Not at all. It can be quite painful.
Which brings us to saying 2. This one outlines what you could call the seeker's cycle. And I have to say, this saying is the most brutally honest advertisement for the spiritual path I have ever read.
It certainly doesn't pull any punches, does it?
Not at all. Could you read it for us?
Of course. Let one who seeks not stop seeking until one finds. When one finds, one will be troubled. When one is troubled, one will marvel and will reign over all.
Seek, find, be troubled, marvel, reign.
Notice that sequence. It's not what you'd expect.
It's that middle step, be troubled. Usually the promise is, seek and you shall find peace, or seek and you shall find joy. Thomas says, seek, find, and you're going to be really, really upset for a minute.
It's the experience of vertigo, because think about what happens when you actually find the truth about the universe, or, more terrifyingly, about yourself. What does it do? It shatters your illusions.
It breaks the map you're using to navigate.
Exactly. We all walk around with a mental map of reality. I am this kind of person, the world works like this, success looks like that. If you really lift the stone and see what is actually there. The impermanence of everything, the deep interconnectedness, the fact that your ego is just a temporary construct, that is not comforting. It is profoundly terrifying.
It reminds me of that scene in The Matrix. When Neo finally wakes up in the real world in that pod filled with goo, he doesn't say, wow, cool, I'm free. He throws up. He panics. His eyes hurt because he's never really used them before.
That is the perfect analogy. That is the trouble. It is the death of the old worldview. And what Thomas is saying is, do not be afraid of the trouble. The trouble is the gateway. You cannot get to the marveling, the awe, the enlightenment without passing through that vertigo.
So if our listener is going through a time in their life where everything feels shaky, where their old answers aren't working anymore and they feel deeply troubled, that's not a sign of failure.
Absolutely not. It's a sign that the process is working. It means they are entering the nigredo.
The blackening. Let's dive into that. The nigredo. This is the first real stage of the alchemical work. Decomposition. Rot. The dark night of the soul.
It sounds incredibly grim, but it's essential. In chemical alchemy, you have to break a substance down to its core components before you can purify and recombine it. In the psyche, this is the breakdown of the ego's dominance. It's messy.
And Thomas illustrates this necessary breakdown by taking a story we all think we know and giving it a radical twist. The parable of the lost sheep.
Saying 107.
Now, I know the Sunday school version by heart. A shepherd have 100 sheep. One wanders off. He leaves the 99 in the pen to go find the one. And the moral is always, God loves the sinner or no one is left behind. It's a very cozy, comforting story.
Thomas makes it less cozy.
Yeah.
And a lot more radical. In his version, when the shepherd finds the lost sheep, he says to it, I love you more than the 99.
Okay, hold on. I have always felt bad for the 99 in this scenario. They did everything right. They stayed in the pen. They ate their grass. They didn't cause any trouble. Why does the screw-up get the promotion? It seems unfair.
To understand this, we have to look at it through the lens of the evolution of consciousness. Who are the 99?
Well, they're the herd, the collective.
They are the collective. They represent the state of Garden of Eden consciousness. It's a state of undifferentiated oneness. They are safe, they are together, but they are unconscious. They haven't done anything wrong, but they haven't done anything real either.
They're like NPCs, non-player characters in a video game.
Yes, essentially. They're part of the background. Now look at the lost sheep. To get lost, what do you have to do first?
You have to leave. You have to separate yourself from the herd.
You have to become an individual. The one sheep represents the necessary fall into individuality. It represents the ego separating from the collective unconscious. It goes out into the dark. It experiences fear, loneliness, separation. It develops a self.
So the lost sheep is us. It's the human condition.
It is the entire human project. And the reason the shepherd loves the lost sheep more is because its journey and its return represents a higher state of complexity. A sheep that stays in the pen has unity, but a sheep that leaves, develops a self, suffers, learns, and then returns voluntarily has unity plus individuality. It is a higher octave of consciousness.
That completely turns the whole idea of the fall of man on its head. It implies the fall wasn't a mistake or a sin. It was a field trip.
A necessary excursion. You have to get lost to become real. The nigredo, the separation, the confusion, the darkness is the engine of evolution.
But here's the problem with the nigredo. When we separate and we develop this ego to survive out in the dark, we pick up a lot of bad habits. We get defensive, we get petty, we get jealous, we build all these coping mechanisms that eventually become what Thomas calls weeds.
Saying 57, the parable of the weeds and the weeds.
This one, for me, really hits home. The story is simple. A farmer plants good seed in his field. An enemy comes at night and plants weeds. The servants see the weeds sprouting up among the wheat and they panic. They go to the master and say, Master, should we go out there and rip all those weeds out right now?
Which is the immediate instinct of this superego, right? The inner critic.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do this all the time. I'll see a flaw in myself. Maybe I'm being lazy or I'm feeling judgmental. And my immediate violent reaction is, cut it out. Surgically remove this part of me. Be perfect now.
And what does the master in the parable say?
He says no.
He says no, lest while you pull up the weeds, you pull up the weed along with them.
Explain that mechanism. Psychologically, why would pulling the weed kill the wheat? How does that work?
Because in the early stages of our growth, during the messy nigraded phase, the roots are all intertwined. This is such a profound psychological insight. Your weeds, your defenses, your coping mechanisms, your shadow aspects are often structurally supporting your wheat. your talents, your potential, your gifts.
Can you give us a real-world example of that?
Sure. Think about someone who is incredibly high-achieving. Maybe they built a massive company from scratch, or they're a brilliant, driven artist. But maybe if you dig down deep, that incredible drive comes from a weed. Maybe it comes from a deep-seated insecurity, a need to prove their father wrong, a feeling of not being good enough.
So the weed of insecurity is actually fueling the weed of creation.
Exactly. Now, if you could go in there with a magic wand at age 20 and miraculously cure their insecurity, if you just ripped out that weed, what might happen?
You might kill the drive. You might collapse the whole structure.
You might collapse the whole structure before the wheat is strong enough to stand on its own 2 feet. So the master says, wait for the harvest.
Bish.
Patience. He says, on the day of the harvest, the weeds will be conspicuous.
Conspicuous. Not just visible, but obviously out of place.
That's the key word. It means when you are mature, when the weed is fully grown, you won't have to hunt for your flaws with a microscope. It will be obvious what is your true self and what is just a defense mechanism you don't need anymore. And then, and only then, you can gather the weeds and burn them without damaging the soul. But you have to wait for the timing to be right.
That is an incredibly forgiving and compassionate teaching. It's basically permission to be a work in progress. It's saying, don't try to be a saint before you've even become a fully formed human.
Precisely. Premature purification is just another form of aggression against the self. It's the ego trying to perfect itself, which is a contradiction in terms.
So we endure the nigredo. We accept the messiness of the weeds and the wheat growing together. We let it happen. Now we move to the next stage. The albedo.
The whitening.
Purification. The dawn after the dark night of the soul. This is where you begin to clean the slate. And in Thomas, this process of purification centers around a concept that I think most modern people, myself included, really struggle with, the Sabbath.
Saying 27, it's a dense one. Jesus says, if you do not fast from the world, you will not find the kingdom. If you do not keep the Sabbath a Sabbath, you will not see the Father.
Keep the Sabbath a Sabbath. Okay, so I grew up with the rule book version of this. Sabbath meant it's Sunday, all the stores are closed, you can't mow the lawn, you have to sit still and basically be bored for a day.
That is the external, literal Sabbath. You could call it the training wheels for the real thing. But Thomas, as always, is deliteralizing it. He's stripping the training wheels away. He isn't talking about a day of the week. He's talking about a state of consciousness.
An inner rest.
An inner rest.
Yeah.
But it's more active than just taking a nap. It is the conscious cessation of striving. Think about how we operate, especially in today's world. We are engines of doing.
Yeah.
We are constantly trying to manipulate reality to push the river to get what we want.
We're always trying to force an outcome.
Always. The inner Sabbath is the moment you deliberately take your hands off the wheel. It's a state of radical being rather than doing. But notice, he pairs it with fasting from the world.
Yeah, let's unpack that part, because fasting usually means not eating. And the world usually means, well, Earth. So is he saying starve yourself and hate the planet? That sounds like that old dualism again.
No, not at all. In the Gnostic lexicon, the world almost never refers to the physical planet. It refers to the system, the matrix of human attachment. Status, identity, the rat race, the desperate hunger for validation, likes, and approval.
So fasting from the world is kind of like a dopamine detox.
Honestly, yes.
Yeah.
That's a perfect modern analogy. It means intentionally withdrawing your hunger from external validation. If you are constantly gorging on the world, checking your phone for likes, checking stock prices, seeking approval from others, you are spiritually bloated. You are too full to be able to perceive the kingdom.
So the alchemical mechanism is fasting, which is letting go of the noise, plus Sabbath, which is resting in the silence, equals the albedo.
The whitening. You clean the lens of perception. You become a clear, still mirror that can finally reflect the Father or the source or reality as it is. You clear the static so you can actually hear the signal.
But there's a danger here, and I feel like I've seen this happen to people. You have this moment of clarity. You go on the meditation retreat, you fast from the world, you have this massive spiritual insight, the new wine pours in. And then you try to go back to your old life with your old brain.
And you explode psychologically.
Chapter 47, new wine and old wineskins. It's in the canonical Gospels too, but it feels so central here.
You cannot pour new wine into old wineskins.
Break down the actual physics of that metaphor for us.
It's very practical. Wine, when it's new, is still fermenting. It's alive. It's active. It releases gas. It expands. It creates pressure from the inside out.
It's volatile.
Very. Now, the old wineskin is a container made of leather that has dried out over time. It's become hard, brittle, rigid. It has a fixed shape and no flexibility. This is your old ego, your old belief systems, your rigid categories of right and wrong.
So if you pour a cosmic, expansive, living truth into a rigid, small mind,
The mind cracks. The wineskin bursts. The new insight is lost, and the container is destroyed.
what does that look like in a person in real life?
It looks like psychological inflation, the God complex. You see this sometimes with people who have profound psychedelic experiences or deep meditative insights, but they haven't done the slow, difficult psychological work to build a flexible container.
Right.
They get the cosmic download, I am one with everything, but their small ego hears, Steve from accounting is God, the supreme ruler of the universe.
And then Steve from accounting starts a cult.
And then Steve starts a cult.
Ah.
Or he has a psychotic break because the new information can't be integrated. The alchemical warning here is critical. You cannot just seek the white light. You have to simultaneously rebuild the vessel. You have to make your mind flexible enough to hold paradox and ambiguity.
Which brings us to the rebuilding phase,
Yeah.
the citronitis, the yellowing.
The yellowing. This is the stage that often gets dropped in simplified pop culture versions of alchemy, but it's absolutely crucial. It represents individuation. It's the rising of the inner sun, the solar light, within the purified self.
And Thomas gives us a blueprint for this new foundation in saying 66. It's a classic image, but he gives it his signature esoteric twist. Show me the stone that the builders rejected. That is the cornerstone.
The rejected stone.
Okay, let's identify the characters in this little drama. Who are the builders?
The builders are the architects of the status quo. On a societal level, they are the culture, the church, the family expectations that tell you who you should be. But inside you, the primary builder is your own ego.
The ego is a general contractor.
It is, and it's a very conservative one. It likes square blocks. It likes things that fit neatly into the wall it's building. I'm a good person. I'm a hard worker. I am rational and in control. It builds a defensive wall against the chaos of the world.
And then there's this other stone, this weird, odd-shaped, lumpy rock that doesn't fit anywhere.
That's the part of you that doesn't fit the ego's plan. Your vulnerability, your wildness, your weird interests that you hide, your shadow. The ego looks at that stone and says, this is useless. It ruins the clean line of my wall, and it throws it on the trash heap.
It rejects it.
But the saying tells us that the very stone the builders threw away is the cornerstone, the foundation stone. It is the most important rock in the whole structure.
So the yellowing, this moment of becoming a true solar individual, is the dawning realization that the very thing I've been hiding and ashamed of is actually the only sturdy thing I have to build a real life on.
Yes. Wholeness, which is the goal of alchemy, it doesn't come from being perfect, a perfectly smooth wall of square blocks. It comes from integrating the rejected parts. The golden sun of the true self rises when you start building your life on your mask and start building it on your authentic, sometimes awkward truth.
Even if that truth is odd-shaped.
Especially if it is odd-shaped, because that unique shape is you. That is your specific twinship with the divine, not a copy of someone else's.
And we have to go there. There's a way to mess this up permanently. There's a warning in Thomas that has kept people awake at night for 2,000 years. The so-called unforgivable sin.
Saying 44, blasphemy against the Holy Spirit.
Read it for us, and then please, talk me down, because this one has always sounded like a divine grudge match.
Okay. Jesus says, whoever blasphemes against the Father will be forgiven, and whoever blasphemes against the Son will be forgiven, but whoever blasphemes against the Holy Spirit will not be forgiven.
It sounds so arbitrary. You can make fun of Dad, you can make fun of the kid, but don't you dare make fun of the ghost. Why? Why is that the one line in the sand you cannot cross?
To understand this, we have to stop thinking of the Trinity as three people sitting on clouds judging us, and start thinking of them as components in a living circuit, a mechanism of transformation.
Okay, lay out the circuit for me.
The Father is the source, the pure potential, the unmanifest. Think of it as the electricity in the power plant, far away. The Son is the form, the manifestation, the light bulb in your room, the specific expression of that energy.
Okay, source and form, power plant and light bulb. What's the spirit?
The Spirit. The Spirit is the current, the flow.
Ah, the electricity moving through the wire.
Exactly. It's the movement, the process of transformation itself. Now, follow the logic. If you reject the Father, the source, you're just ignorant of where the power comes from. That can be forgiven. You can be educated. If you reject the Son, the form, maybe you just don't like that particular light bulb. That's fine. There are other forms.
But if you reject the current,
You're rejecting the mechanism of change itself. You are rejecting the very possibility of healing and growth.
it's like cutting the wire and then complaining that the light won't turn on.
That's exactly. It's not that God is sitting there with a grudge saying, nope, sorry, I refuse to forgive you. It is that by rejecting the Spirit, by rejecting the very concept of movement, growth, and transformation, you have dismantled the apparatus that receives forgiveness. You cannot be healed if you fundamentally reject the process of healing.
So it's structural. It's not a punishment. It's just a consequence of the physics of the system.
It is a structural impossibility. To stay in the citrinitas, to keep growing and glowing, you must keep the current moving. You cannot lock down your beliefs and say, I am done. Calcification is the only real spiritual death.
That makes so much more sense. And it leads us perfectly to the final stage. Because once you have that current moving, once you've found your cornerstone and started building, you have to actually live somewhere. You have to leave the mountaintop, leave the meditation cushion, and go back to work on Monday.
The rubedo, the reddening.
Red, the color of blood, of life, of the earth, of the marketplace.
It is the stage of manifestation, taking the gold you found inside during the citrinitas and bringing it back into the world of lead.
And Jesus gives us the ultimate practical instruction for this in Saying 100. It's the famous scene where they try to trap him. They show him a gold coin and they ask, Caesar's people demand taxes from us.
It's the perfect trap. If he says no, don't pay, he's a political revolutionary and the Romans will arrest him. If he says yes, pay, he's a sellout to his people.
And he gives that legendary answer. Give Caesar what is Caesar's and give God what is God's.
Now, usually we hear this as a political statement, be a good citizen, or separation of church and state. But from a mystical, alchemical perspective, this is the very definition of the rubedo.
How so? Unpack that for me.
Look at the coin. It's stamped with Caesar's face. It belongs to the economic, political, horizontal plane of reality. The fully realized alchemist doesn't burn the money and run for the hills. That's immature asceticism.
Right, that's the reject the world trap we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And the alchemist doesn't worship the money either. That's the materialist trap. The alchemist handles the money, but recognizes its nature. This coin belongs to Caesar's system. Fine. I will pay the tax. I will wash the dishes. I will file my reports. I will do the job.
You align with the practical realities of the world. You don't waste energy fighting the system on the system's own level.
Correct. But give God what is God's. You reserve your inner allegiance, your ultimate value, for the real. You maintain your spiritual integrity while you are counting Caesar's coins.
It's integration. And it's the hardest thing in the world to do. It's easy to be holy in a cave. It's easy to be greedy on Wall Street. It is incredibly difficult to be holy on Wall Street.
That is the great work, being in the world but not of it. Bringing the clear-eyed purity of the albedo into the blood and guts density of the rubedo.
And when you pull that off, when you can actually live that integration, that is what Thomas calls the kingdom. And this is the part that just blows my mind every single time, saying 22. He defines the kingdom not as a place you go when you die, but as a way of seeing right now.
When you make the two into one, and when you make the inner, like the outer, and like the inner, and the upper, like the lower, then you will enter the kingdom.
This is pure non-duality. The war between opposites is over.
The split is healed. Your inner life and your outer life are no longer enemies or strangers. They become mirrors of each other. You aren't a fragmented ego fighting a hostile world anymore. You are a living spirit moving through a world that you now recognize as also spirit.
And my favorite saying in a whole book, saying 113, confirms this directly. The disciples are nagging him, like they always are. When will the kingdom come? Is it going to be on Tuesday? Do we have to go to Jerusalem?
They're waiting for a historical event, a train to arrive at the station.
And Jesus basically says, you guys are looking in completely the wrong direction.
He says, it will not come by watching for it. It will not be a matter of saying, here it is, or there it is. Rather, the Father's kingdom is spread out upon the earth, and people do not see it.
It is spread out upon the earth. It is literally right here, right now, under our feet.
We've come full circle. We started with saying 77, with the stone, remember?
Yeah.
Lift the stone and you will find me. We end by realizing that the kingdom was in the stone the whole time. The whole journey wasn't about going somewhere else. It was about cleaning your eyes, the entire alchemical process, so you could finally see where you already were.
That is so beautiful. It means the mundane world, the world of stones and wood, is the holy world once you learn how to see it properly.
That is the great secret of the Gospel of Thomas.
Okay, we have covered the entire roadmap, but we cannot leave without addressing the elephant in the room.
The outro, saying 114.
The very last saying. And if you just read this cold with no context, you want to throw the book across the room.
It is controversial, to say the least.
It's a little scene. Simon Peter, who, let's be honest, always plays the role of the unenlightened, slightly dense guy in this text, says, "Let Mary leave us, for women are not worthy of life."
Wow, Peter, tell us how you really feel.
Not a great lift for Peter. But then Jesus replies, and honestly, his reply sounds even weirder and more offensive to modern ears. He says, "I myself shall lead her in order to make her male, so that she too may become a living spirit resembling you males. For every female who makes herself male will enter the kingdom of heaven."
Okay, deep breath on that one.
Yeah, make herself male. My first reaction is, what? Sorry, ladies, spiritual enlightenment is a boys' club. Better luck next reincarnation. Try to come back as a man.
It sounds horribly, irredeemably sexist if you read it biologically, but we can't. We have to read it symbolically. We have to use the alchemical code we spent this whole time learning. Remember saying 22? Make the male and female into a single one?
Right, the union of opposites.
In the philosophical and mystical language of that time, Platonism, in the writings of Philo of Alexandria, these terms were established metaphors. Female was the code word for the earthly, the material, the receptive, the realm of things that are born and die, the divisible.
And male, by contrast.
Male was the code word for the heavenly, the spiritual, the active principle, the realm of the eternal, the indivisible.
So when Peter says Mary shouldn't be here, he's not just being a misogynist. He's complaining that she represents the earthly, mortal realm. He wants a purely spiritual, male conversation.
Exactly. And Jesus isn't offering Mary a gender transition. He is describing the final stage of the alchemical marriage. He is saying, I will guide her earthly nature, the symbolic female, to unite with the eternal spiritual nature, the symbolic male.
He is saying she needs to integrate the spirit to become whole, just like everyone else.
Precisely. And here's the kicker. It applies to men, too. In this symbolic system, we all start as symbolically female. We are all born into the earthly, material, divisible, mortal world. We all must become male, that is, integrate the eternal spirit, the indivisible. And ultimately, we must transcend both categories to become the single one.
So it's actually a statement of radical inclusion, just disguised in the most awkward, historically bound language possible.
It is the final instruction, integration. You bring the earth up to heaven, and you bring heaven down to earth inside yourself.
Wow, okay. We have walked the path. We started with the raw stone, the prima materia. We got lost with the sheep in the Negredo. We let the weeds grow. We rested in the inner sabbath of the albedo. We found the rejected cornerstone and the citradatas. We learned to pay Caesar in the rubido. And we found the kingdom spread out on the earth all along.
It's a complete, coherent system.
It really is. It's not just a collection of random quotes. It's an architecture for the transformation of the soul.
And the stakes, as Thomas presents them, are incredibly high.
Which leads us to our final thought for you, the listener. A provocation taken from saying 70.
If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you.
That is the ultimate double-edged sword. Your inner potential is not neutral. It doesn't just sit there quietly.
Unlived life is a destructive force. If you repress your inner gold, it turns into a kind of psychic lead poisoning. The alchemical process isn't a hobby. In this view, it is a requirement for spiritual survival.
So here is our deep dive challenge to you today. Just for a moment, think about where you are on this map.
Are you in the Negredo? Are you feeling lost, confused, troubled? If so, don't panic. You're just differentiating. You're the one sheep who had the courage to leave the 99.
Are you in the albedo? Do you need to fast from the world for a bit, put down the phone, stop seeking validation, and just rest in the inner Sabbath?
Or are you in the citrinitas, rejecting your own cornerstone? What is the weird, inconvenient, odd-shaped truth about yourself that you've been hiding? That might be the very foundation you need to build your real life on.
Lift the stone, folks. Take a real look at the heaviest, most mundane thing in your life right now. The logos might be hiding right there, waiting for you.
Indeed.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you in the kingdom. It's spread out right here if you just have the eyes to see it. See you next time.